thank you all for joining us today again. So we're going to start with a real quick broad overview of Puget Sound to help put things in context a bit. So Puget Sound is a big place, as we know, depending on how you measure it. It's the first, second, or third largest estuary in the U.S. by water volume or shoreline miles, watershed area. There's about 16,000 square miles of land that drains into the Puget Sound. There's 10,000 plus miles of little streams and big rivers, and depending on how you measure the shoreline, 1,300 miles of shoreline. If you count all the islands in the Strait of Juan de Fuca, it's maybe closer to 2,500 miles of shoreline. So, it's a big area. It's also part of the broader Shaleless Sea, which extends into British Columbia. And so, we're part of a big place, and everything we do in small places is linked to our broader region, of course. We also know it's a pretty diverse place. There's 4 million plus people. It's growing every day. We have 29 plus Native American tribes and a wide variety of wildlife, fish, marine mammals, aquatic inverts, and so on. We live in a unique forest type here, as you may be aware, that this temperate wet rainforest that we love to play in. And it's a unique ecosystem that's not found in a lot of places in the world. As you can see, it's limited to some of the ranges expressed on the map to the right here. And so we know this is a special place to live. We all enjoy a high quality of life here. But there are some big trends and changes we see in Puget Sound, some of which you may be aware of. So there's been a 2/3 loss of our old growth forests in the last 150 years or so. Some of that's been protected, some of it's been replanted and managed. But there's this legacy of old forest land with rich habitat that has essentially been permanently lost. And you can see that only some of it remains on the Olympics and into the Cascades on the map on the right here in green. Another big challenge for us, of course, is, as more and more people move here and try to enjoy our high quality of life, we have 1.5 million more people projected to be here by 2050 on top of our existing 4 million. And a lot of people enjoy living by the shoreline, as we know, and a lot of those areas are pretty ecologically sensitive too. So it's just we're gonna have to work together to find a balance between putting development in the right place and managing our land so people and nature can thrive. Another big trend and challenge is shoreline armor. So as many of you know, shoreline armor helps, the idea behind a lot of it is to help protect us from the sea. However, as you may know, shoreline armor has a lot of challenges to it. All armor eventually fails and degrades. As you can see in this picture, it's expensive. Counterintuitively, it can also potentially sometimes make erosion worse, or at least not address necessarily the root cause of your erosion challenges. It can also impact your beach access and development of your beach over time, as well as affect habitat. And we'll talk all about this later. We have a whole section on shoreline armor, but this is just a high level overview. So there's a lot of armor in Puget Sound, over 700 miles, and nearly half of residential parcels, about 48% of residential parcels in Puget Sound have armor. And there's new armor each year. As you can see on this graph, the dark purple bars on top shows new armor each year and number of permitted miles. And there's a lot of unpermitted armor too, but we can see we're having a little less new armor each year, and a little bit more armor that's been removed through willing, excited landowners that we work with in programs like Shore Friendly, do voluntary projects to help manage their shoreline and remove some of their shoreline armor. And so, as a result of some of these big scale trends, we have areas that look like on the left here, turning into areas that look like on the right, as we have more development, more concentrated development on our shorelines and shoreline armor, and loss of forest lands. On top of that, we have a lot of impacts from climate change, which we'll talk about later as well. We have a warming climate, of course. We have changing precipitation patterns. We have bigger storms coming, rising sea levels, higher new normal high tides. So a lot to think about here. So we have less forest, more development, more armor, climate change, sea level rise. Some big challenges for us at a regional level. And that the cumulative impacts of these are many and multifaceted. And just to name a few, with more development, less forest, we're gonna have more impervious surfaces, we're gonna have more runoff, higher velocity water, higher volume water that's not gonna sink into the ground or infiltrate or be soaked up by trees. And that's gonna carry a lot of toxins and microplastics and chemicals from our lawns and automobiles into the sound, deliver a lot of pollution. And also we have rising sea levels, which is going to have its own challenges. And so these things collectively lead to challenges in erosion with rising sea levels and more developed waterfront. We have changes to soil stability as a result, potential impacts to water quality, wildlife habitat, our fishing industry, some of our natural resources like our timber and shellfish industries, which can be impacted by this loss of forest land and increased pollution and changing freshwater flooding patterns. And public beach access can be impacted as well. So we have a lot of things here that we care about at a high level. We have our sense of place, our culture, our jobs, our economy, a lot of services provided by our natural environment. And our natural resources are connected to a lot of these big picture things, as we know. The natural resources that provide support for wildlife also provide protection from flooding, protection from storms, reduction of pollution, and help buffer against erosion in a lot of cases and things like that. And those same resources support a lot of life too, of course. The Puget Sound Partnership is an organization that tracks a bunch of indicators of how our ecosystems are doing in different ways, whether that's water quality, habitat quality, how our individual species are doing, and how different measures of human quality of life are doing. And so you can check that out on this website here, just to look at a few. Our orca population, as many of you know, isn't doing so well. We're down to about 72 on our southern resident killer whale pod. Our salmon, different species of salmon are doing differently, but our Chinook salmon, our biggest and most well-known salmon, are not doing, they're not improving, at least on an aggregate. Our herring and some of our other forage fish, which are kind of at the bottom of the food chain, important for our fisheries, and food for salmon, which in turn are food for orcas, are also declining, partly as a result of some of the development of our shorelines. And our other critters, like some of our seabirds, have mixed results. So this isn't meant to paint a picture of doom and gloom, but it's important to contextualize some of the big scale trends that you may already be aware of. And so how does this impact you and what role you can play? That's what we want to talk about today. And so, the things that you might care about on your waterfront, I can't answer that for you, but it might be things like your beach, the privacy or quiet that you enjoy, your boating access, your home or habitat, or many of these things. And these, what you do in your waterfront is impacted by these regional trends, and these regional trends impact all of these resources as well, right? So the shorefront home that you have, it's a challenge and opportunity, and we just want to drive home the point that working with nature in a lot of cases can often really benefit your needs. And we want to try to work with you on what your shoreline goals are and try to find a balance of stewarding your resources for your needs.